The space around the horizon filled with activity, unlike anything Lisa had ever seen. The 13 enhanced ships moved through the asteroid field like dancers, their hulls glowing with soft light that pulsed in rhythm with each other. But they weren't using any engines or thrusters that Dr. Stevens could detect. "How are they moving?" Stevens asked, his face pressed against the scanner display. "There's no propulsion signature, no energy discharge, nothing." Blake stood beside him, watching his former colleagues work. "They're convincing space that they want to be somewhere else." When you understand that reality is more flexible than we thought, moving becomes a matter of gentle persuasion rather than brute force. Admiral Carter had called in every ship in the sector. The space around them now held 23 Earth Fleet vessels, all watching the demonstration with sensors recording everything. Word had already reached Earth, and Lisa knew that billions of people were watching the live feeds. Contact from the Discovery. Amy announced. Captain Palmer's face appeared on the screen. He was a stocky man with kind eyes who looked exactly as he had when his ship disappeared 8 years ago. "Admiral Carter, we're ready to begin. We've selected a cluster of iron-rich asteroids about 10 kilometers from your position. We recommend all non-enhanced ships maintain safe distance." Carter leaned forward. "Palmer, what exactly are you planning to do?" "We're going to show humanity what enhanced consciousness can accomplish when it works together," Palmer replied. "The station we're building will be fully functional, with life support, power systems, docking bays, and living quarters. When we're finished, it will be ready for immediate occupation." Dr. Stevens shook his head. "Captain Palmer, even with the most advanced construction equipment, building a space station takes months, sometimes years." Palmer smiled. "Doctor, we're not using construction equipment. We're using construction concepts. Watch." The enhanced ships spread out around the asteroid cluster. Each vessel positioned itself at a precise point, forming a complex three-dimensional pattern. Then, simultaneously, they all began to glow brighter. Lisa felt something change in the air around her. It was like the moment before a thunderstorm, when the very atoms seemed to hold their breath. Through the window, she could see the asteroids beginning to move, but they weren't just moving randomly. The massive chunks of rock and metal flowed toward each other like liquid, reshaping themselves as they merged. What had been jagged, irregular asteroids became smooth, curved surfaces that fit together with impossible precision. "The molecular bonds are being restructured," Dr. Stevens whispered, his voice full of awe. "They're not just moving the asteroids. They're changing them at the atomic level." Helen, who had been quiet beside Blake, spoke softly. "Consciousness shapes reality, Doctor. When 13 enhanced minds work together with perfect coordination, we can convince matter to take new forms." The transformation accelerated. Within minutes, the asteroid cluster had become the framework of a massive space station. But the enhanced crews weren't finished. Light began to flow between the ships, visible beams of energy that danced through space and touched the growing structure. "Life support systems," Dr. Lee explained, watching Lisa's amazed expression. "We're not just building the physical structure. We're creating all the systems needed to support human life." Jake pointed out the window. "Look at Section 7. It's like the metal is growing." He was right. Parts of the station were literally growing, extending new corridors and chambers like a living thing. But it wasn't random growth. Lisa could see the logical layout taking shape: docking bays, residential areas, command centers, all flowing together in a design that was both beautiful and practical. Admiral Carter was talking rapidly into her communicator, reporting what she was seeing to Earth Command. Her voice was steady, but Lisa could see the wonder in her eyes. "Time to completion?" Carter called out. 4 hours, 17 minutes, came the reply from one of the enhanced ships. Dr. Stevens was frantically taking readings. "Admiral, the energy levels are incredible, but they're not coming from the ship's reactors. The enhanced crews are somehow drawing power from empty space itself." Blake nodded. "The quantum foam that underlies all reality contains infinite energy. The architects taught us how to tap into it safely. We take only what we need, and never more than the universe can spare." As they watched, the station took on more definition. Lisa could see observation decks with transparent aluminum windows, hangar bays large enough for Earth fleet cruisers, and what looked like gardens filled with growing plants. "Are those real plants?" Amy asked. Helen smiled. "Enhanced consciousness can do more than just reshape matter. We can accelerate biological processes, encourage growth, even convince plants to thrive in environments that should be hostile to them." The demonstration was having an effect beyond just the military observers. Lisa's communications board was lighting up with messages from Earth. The live feeds were being broadcast across human space, and the reactions were intense. Some people were calling it humanity's greatest achievement. Others were terrified of what they were seeing. "Captain Morgan," came a transmission from Earth Command. "This is Admiral Harrison. I need to speak with Admiral Carter immediately." Carter took the call in private, but her expression when she returned told Lisa everything. The debate on Earth was becoming heated. "What's the reaction?" Blake asked. "Mixed," Carter replied. "The scientific community is fascinated. The military sees the potential advantages. But there are groups calling this an invasion, claiming that you're not really human anymore." Dr. Lee looked sad. "We expected that. Fear of change is one of humanity's oldest traits." The station construction entered its final phase. The enhanced ships began adding the finishing touches. Communication arrays, defensive systems, and what looked like artwork decorating the outer hull. Everything was functional, but it was also beautiful in a way that normal human construction never achieved. "Completion in 30 minutes, Palmer announced. Dr. Stevens was shaking his head in disbelief. "Admiral, this station is more advanced than anything in the Earth fleet. The power systems alone are beyond our current technology by decades." "That's the point," Blake said quietly. "This is what humanity can become. Not just more advanced technology, but a completely new way of existing in the universe." Jake suddenly looked up from his console. "Captain, I'm detecting new ships entering the system. These signatures are different from anything in our database." Through the window, Lisa could see new lights appearing in space. But these weren't human ships or enhanced human ships. These vessels were clearly alien, with designs that hurt to look at directly and energy patterns that made no sense. "First contact," Helen said calmly. "The architects told us this would happen. The demonstration would attract attention from other species." Admiral Carter's face went pale. "Are they hostile?" Blake studied the approaching ships through the window. "Unknown. But this is why humanity needs to make its choice soon. We're not alone in the galaxy, and now everyone knows that humans have the potential for enhancement." The alien ships stopped at a respectful distance, but their presence changed. Everything, what had been a demonstration for humanity's benefit, was now being observed by unknown intelligences with unknown intentions. "Admiral," Dr. Lee said urgently, "the enhanced crews are requesting permission to make contact with the alien vessels." Carter looked at the impossible space station, the enhanced human ships, and the alien watchers. In the span of a few hours, everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe had changed. "Denied," she said finally. "Until we understand what we're dealing with, no one makes contact with anything." But Blake was already moving toward the door. "Admiral, with respect, the choice isn't just ours anymore. The galaxy is watching humanity, and we need to show them who we really are." Outside, the alien ships waited silently, and the completed space station hung in space like a promise of humanity's potential future. Captain Lisa Morgan stood at the big window of her ship's control room. She watched the stars shine in the dark space around them. Her ship, the UES Horizon, was on a normal patrol mission near the edge of human space. Nothing exciting ever happened. Out here, most days were just checking old shipping routes and making sure pirates weren't hiding in the asteroid fields. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the scanners," said Jake Collins from his station. He was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that always seemed curious about everything. Today those eyes looked worried. Lisa walked over to his station. "What kind of strange?" "Big energy reading, coming from Sector 7. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. The computer can't even identify what's causing it." Before Lisa could answer, the space in front of them began to change. It looked like the stars were bending, twisting into shapes that hurt to look at. A bright light appeared, growing bigger and brighter until everyone on the bridge had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, there was a ship floating in front of them. But this wasn't just any ship. Lisa felt her heart stop for a moment. She knew that shape, those markings. Every person in the Earth fleet knew this ship. "My God," whispered Amy Parker from the communications station. "That's the Pathfinder." The UES Pathfinder had been humanity's pride and joy 17 years ago. It was the first ship built specifically for deep space exploration, designed to travel farther from Earth than anyone had ever gone before. The mission was supposed to last 5 years. They were going to explore the Kepler 442 system, look for planets that might support human life, and come home with enough data to plan the next wave of human expansion into the galaxy. Instead, they had simply vanished. One day they were sending regular reports back to Earth. The next day, nothing. No distress signal, no final message, no wreckage to find. They had just disappeared, as if they had never existed at all. The search had gone on for months. Every available ship in the Earth fleet had joined the hunt. They had scanned every asteroid, every planet, every piece of space debris in 100 light-year radius. Nothing. The Pathfinder and its 12 crew members had simply vanished into the dark. Now here it was, floating in space like it had never been gone at all. But something was different about it. The hull, which had been the standard gray-white of Earth ships, now seemed to shimmer and change color as Lisa watched. Sometimes it looked silver, sometimes blue, sometimes like it was made of light itself. "Jake, run a full scan on that ship. I want to know everything about it," Lisa ordered. Jake's fingers flew over his controls. After a moment, he looked up with confusion written all over his face. "Captain, the ship's energy signature is impossible. Whatever's powering it, it's putting out more energy than our main reactor, but the readings don't match any power source." "I know. What about the crew?" Lisa asked. 12 life signs, all human. "But Captain, according to these readings, their biosignatures match the original crew manifest from 17 years ago." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. That's impossible. They should all be 17 years older. Amy suddenly straightened at her station. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Pathfinder. Put it on the main screen." The large screen at the front of the bridge flickered to life. A man's face appeared, and Lisa had to grab the back of Jake's chair to steady herself. She knew that face from 1,000 mission briefings and news reports. Captain Ryan Blake, commander of the Pathfinder, looked exactly the same as he had 17 years ago. Maybe even younger. His dark hair was still thick and unlined with gray. His face was smooth, without the wrinkles that 17 years in space should have carved into it. But his eyes were different. They held a depth that hadn't been there before, like he had seen things that changed him in ways that went deeper than just getting older. "Captain Morgan," Blake said, and his voice sounded strange too. It had a quality to it that seemed to echo in ways that normal voices didn't. Permission to come aboard. We have a lot to discuss. Lisa found her voice after a moment. Captain. Blake, where have you been? The entire fleet searched for you. We thought you were dead. Blake smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had learned terrible and wonderful secrets. We've been learning, Captain. Learning things that humanity needs to know if we're going to survive what's coming. What's coming? Lisa asked. That's what we need to talk about. But not over an open channel. There are things listening in space, Captain. Things that have been waiting for humanity to grow up enough to notice them. Behind Blake, Lisa could see part of the Pathfinder's bridge. It looked nothing like she remembered from the old mission. Reports. Instead of the harsh white lights and metal surfaces of a standard Earthship, everything seemed to glow with a soft, warm light. The walls looked like they were made of some kind of crystal that pulsed with gentle colors. Captain, Jake whispered, the ship's getting closer. But it's not using any engines I can detect. Lisa looked out the window and saw that Jake was right. The Pathfinder was moving toward them, but there was no engine glow, no exhaust, no visible means of propulsion. It moved through space like it was swimming through water instead of the hard vacuum that should have required massive amounts of energy to cross. Blake, how are you moving your ship? Lisa asked. Another thing we need to discuss in person, Blake replied. Captain, I know this is hard to believe. I know you have a million questions. But time is running short, and there are things you need to see, things you need to understand. Blake, I can't just let you come aboard. You've been missing for 17 years. We don't know what happened to you, where you've been, or if you're even still human. Blake's expression grew serious. Lisa, do you remember the last message we sent before we disappeared? Lisa did remember. It had been burned into her memory like so many other details from that time. You said you had found something unusual in the nebula. Something that was trying to communicate. We found them, Lisa, or rather, they found us. And they've been teaching us things that humanity needs to learn if we're going to survive the next 100 years. The Pathfinder came to a stop just a few hundred meters from the horizon. This close, Lisa could see that the changes to the ship went far beyond just a new paint job. The entire structure seemed to have been rebuilt from the inside out. What had once been sharp angles and straight lines now curved and flowed like. The ship had grown rather than been built. Captain, Amy said quietly, I'm detecting multiple ships moving toward our position. Long-range sensors show at least 6 vessels, all Earth fleet. Lisa wasn't surprised. The Pathfinder's return would have been detected by every sensor station in this part of space. Admiral Carter would want answers, and she would want them fast. Blake, you're about to have a lot more company. The Admiral is going to want to debrief you. I expected that, Blake replied. But Lisa, before she gets here, before this becomes a military matter, I need you to understand something. We didn't just find aliens out there. We found something that's going to change everything about how humanity sees itself and its place in the universe. Lisa looked at the impossible ship floating in front of her, at the man who should have aged 17 years, but looked younger than when he left, and at the crew behind him, who moved with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. All right, Blake, she said finally, come aboard. But you're going to explain everything. Blake smiled, and for a moment he looked like the eager young captain who had left Earth all those years ago. Everything, Lisa, even the parts you won't want to believe. Captain Blake stepped through the airlock doors onto the horizon, and Lisa immediately noticed something was wrong. Not wrong in a dangerous way, but wrong in a way that made her brain struggle to understand what she was seeing. Blake moved differently. Now, his steps were too smooth, too precise. When he turned his head to look around, It was like he was seeing things that weren't there. Behind him came two more crew members from the Pathfinder. Lisa recognized them from the old mission files. Commander Helen Davis, Blake's second-in-command, and Dr. Nancy Lee, the mission's chief scientist. Like Blake, they looked exactly the same as they had 17 years ago, but their eyes held that same strange depth. "Captain Morgan," Helen said, extending her hand. When Lisa shook it, Helen's grip felt normal, but there was something else. A tiny vibration, almost like electricity, but warmer. "Thank you for allowing us aboard." Jake and Amy flanked Lisa as they walked toward the conference room. Lisa noticed that both of her crew members kept staring at the visitors. She couldn't blame them. Something about Blake and his people made you want to look at them, even when you weren't sure why. "Blake, before we go any further, I need to ask you something," Lisa said as they entered the conference room. "Are you still human?" Blake sat down and considered the question seriously. "That's complicated, Lisa. Physically, yes. We're still human. Our DNA hasn't changed. Our hearts still beat, our lungs still breathe. But mentally? That's where things get interesting." Dr. Lee opened a small device that Lisa didn't recognize. It projected a three-dimensional image into the air above the table. The image showed a map of local space, but with details that no Earth scanner could detect. "We didn't just disappear. 17 years ago," Lee explained, "we were taken. Not against our will, but we were definitely moved from where we were supposed to be." The image changed, showing the Pathfinder surrounded by structures that looked like they were made of pure light. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like looking at a storm and a cathedral all at once. "We call them the architects," Blake continued, "though that's not what they call themselves. In fact, they don't really have names the way we understand them. They exist differently than we do." Lisa leaned forward. "What do you mean, differently?" Helen answered this time. "They don't have physical bodies the way we do. They exist as pure consciousness, pure thought. They've been around for millions of years, maybe longer. They've watched thousands of species evolve, grow, and either transcend their physical limitations or destroy themselves." Jake, who had been taking notes on his tablet, looked up. "Why did they take you?" "They didn't take us," Blake corrected. "They invited us. When we first detected their presence in the Veil Nebula, they were curious about us. Most species they encounter are either too primitive to communicate with or so advanced that they've lost interest in physical existence. Humans are different. We're right at the edge of a major evolutionary step." Dr. Lee manipulated the projection, and now it showed human ships, but they looked like the new version of the Pathfinder. Sleek, glowing, and beautiful. "They wanted to see if we were ready for the next level," Lee said. "So they offered to teach us. Not just technology, but ways of thinking that we'd never considered before." Lisa felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. "And you said yes?" "We had a choice," Blake said quietly. "We could learn what they had to teach us, or we could go home and pretend we'd never met them. But they showed us what was coming, Lisa. Other species, some friendly, some not. All of them more advanced than current humanity. If we don't grow, if we don't learn to use our potential, we won't survive the next century." Amy, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "What kind of potential?" Helen smiled, and suddenly the air in the room felt different. It was like standing in a garden on a perfect spring day, full of life and possibility. "Human consciousness is unique, Amy. Most species develop in predictable ways. They grow, they learn, they either transcend or die. But humans have something special. We have imagination combined with stubbornness. We dream of impossible things, and then we make them real." The pleasant feeling in the air faded, and Amy blinked like she was waking up from a dream. "What did?" "You just do? I shared a feeling with you," Helen explained. The architects taught us that consciousness isn't limited to the inside of our skulls. With the right training, we can connect with other minds, share experiences, even share knowledge directly. Lisa stood up quickly. That's mind control. No, Blake said firmly. Mind control would be forcing Amy to think something she didn't want to think. What Helen did was more like showing her a painting. Amy could choose to look at it or not, choose to enjoy it or not. The choice was always hers. Dr. Lee changed the projection again. Now it showed technical diagrams that made Lisa's head hurt to look at. The math and physics were beyond anything she'd learned in the academy. The technology is just a side effect of the consciousness training, Lee explained. When you understand reality at a deeper level, you can work with it in ways that seem impossible. Our ships don't fight against physics anymore. They work with it. Jake was staring at the diagrams with the same expression he'd worn when he first detected the Pathfinder. Dr. Lee, according to these schematics, your ship shouldn't be able to exist. The power requirements alone would require a star. That's because you're thinking about power the old way, Lee replied. We don't generate energy anymore. We borrow it from the quantum foam that underlies all of reality. It's always there, always available. You just have to know how to ask for it politely. Lisa walked to the window and looked out at the Pathfinder. As she watched, the ship's hull seemed to ripple like water. And the architects just gave you this technology? They didn't give us anything, Blake said, joining her at the window. They taught us. There's a difference. Everything we can do now, we learned to do ourselves. The architects just showed us that it was possible. What's the catch? Lisa asked. Nobody gives away technology like this without wanting something in return. Helen laughed, and the sound was like music. That's very human thinking, Lisa. The architects don't want anything from us because they don't need anything. When you exist as pure consciousness, when you can create anything you need just by thinking about it, what could we possibly offer? Them? Then why help us at all? Blake was quiet for a long moment. Because they're lonely, Lisa. They've transcended physical existence. But in doing so, they've lost something. They've lost the ability to be surprised, to learn something truly new. We fascinate them because we're unpredictable. We do things that make no logical sense, and somehow we make them work. The door to the conference room chimed, and Jake checked his console. Captain, Admiral Carter is requesting permission to come aboard. Her ship just arrived. Lisa nodded. Tell her we'll be ready in 5 minutes. She turned back to Blake. What? Are you going to tell her? The truth, Blake replied. All of it. The architects, the training, the technology, everything. She's not going to believe you. Blake smiled that strange new smile of his. Then we'll have to show her. The choice is coming, Lisa. Not just for the military, not just for Earth's government, but for all of humanity. We can stay as we are and hope for the best, or we can grow into something greater. Helen stepped forward. The architects have made their offer to humanity through us. They'll teach anyone who wants to learn. But the decision has to be unanimous. Every human in the galaxy has to agree, or the offer is withdrawn. Lisa felt the weight of what they were saying settle on her shoulders. And if we refuse? Dr. Lee closed her device, and the projection disappeared. Then humanity faces whatever comes next on its own. The architects will withdraw, and we'll never see them. Again, Blake walked toward the door. But Lisa, you should know something else. We're not the only ship they've contacted. There are others out there, other human crews who've been learning and growing. The choice is coming whether we're ready for it or not. As they prepared to meet Admiral Carter, Lisa looked out at the Pathfinder one more time. The ship pulsed, gently with its inner light, beautiful and alien, and somehow still recognizably human. She wondered if humanity was ready for the choice that Blake and his crew were bringing back from the stars. More importantly, she wondered if they were ready for the consequences of that choice, whatever it might be. Admiral Susan Carter stepped onto the horizon with the kind of authority that made everyone in the room stand straighter. She was a tall woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing. Behind her came 2 security officers and Dr. Carl Stevens, the fleet's top scientist. Lisa had served under Carter for 6 years and had never seen the Admiral look worried. Today, she looked very worried indeed. "Captain Blake," Carter said, stopping in front of the man who should have been 17 years older. "You have a lot of explaining to do." Blake nodded respectfully. "Admiral, I understand your concerns. What we're going to tell you will be hard to believe." "Try me," Carter said, taking a seat at the conference table. "Start with where you've been for 17 years. For the next hour, Blake and his crew repeated their story. They told Carter about the architects, about the training they'd received, about the technology that had transformed their ship. Carter listened without interrupting, but Lisa could see the doubt growing in her eyes. When they finished, Carter was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Dr. Stevens. "Carl, what do you make of this?" Dr. Stevens was a thin man with nervous hands who was always pushing his glasses up his nose. He'd been taking notes the entire time, and now he flipped through several pages before answering. "The technology they're describing is impossible according to our current understanding of physics," he said. "But the energy readings from their ship support what they're saying. Whatever's powering the Pathfinder, it's beyond anything we have." Carter turned back to Blake. "You claim these architects enhanced your minds. Prove it." Blake exchanged glances with Helen and Dr. Lee. "What would you like us to prove, Admiral?" "I don't know. Read my mind. Move something without touching it. Show me something that normal humans can't do." Helen leaned forward. "Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to share a memory with you. Nothing private, nothing personal. Just something that will help you understand what we've experienced." Carter's jaw tightened. "I don't want anyone messing around in my head." "It's not messing around," Blake said gently. "It's more like showing you a movie. You can stop it at any time just by thinking stop. You remain in complete control." After a long pause, Carter nodded. "All right. But the moment I don't like what's happening, we're done." Helen closed her eyes and extended her hand toward Carter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Carter's eyes went wide, and she made a small sound of surprise. Lisa watched as emotions played across the Admiral's face. Wonder, fear, awe, and something that might have been joy. It lasted maybe 30 seconds before Carter blinked and leaned back in her chair. "What did you just show me?" Carter asked, her voice shaky. "The architect city," Helen replied. "The place where we lived and learned for subjective centuries, while only months passed in normal time." Dr. Stevens leaned forward eagerly. "What did you see, Admiral?" Carter was quiet for a moment, collecting herself. Structures made of light and thought, beings that were like living stars, and the sense that I was looking at something so far, beyond human understanding, that it should have driven me insane. But instead, it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever experienced. Blake nodded. "That's exactly how we felt when we first arrived. The architects don't just build with matter and energy. They build with concepts, with ideas made real." "But why us?" Carter asked. "Out of all the species in the galaxy, why choose humans?" Dr. Lee activated her projection device again, showing the map of local space. "Because we're at a crossroads, Admiral. In the next 50 to 100 years, humanity is going to encounter other spacefaring species. Some will be friendly. Some will be hostile. Some will be so far beyond us that they won't even notice we exist. The projection changed, showing different types of ships. Some looked organic, like they'd grown instead of being built. Others were geometric and cold. A few looked like they were made of pure energy. The architects have seen this pattern thousands of times, Blake continued. A species reaches our level of development and then faces the test of contact with more advanced civilizations. Most fail. They either destroy themselves fighting each other, or they're absorbed by more powerful species, or they simply give up and fade away. Carter studied the projection. And the ones that succeed? They transcend, Helen said simply. They learn to use the full potential of consciousness. They become something greater than what they were. Dr. Stevens was scribbling notes frantically. But what about the ones who refuse? What about species that choose to remain as they are? Some survive, Dr. Lee admitted, but they become minor players in galactic civilization. They're protected like children, never allowed to make their own decisions about their future. Carter stood up and walked to the window. The Pathfinder hung in space nearby, its hull shimmering with impossible colors. So we have a choice. Evolve. Or become irrelevant. It's not that simple, Blake said. Evolution has to be chosen freely by everyone. The architects won't force it on any species. If even one human refuses, the offer is withdrawn. One person can doom our entire species? Carter turned around, her face hard. One person can preserve our right to choose our own path, Helen corrected. The architects respect free well above everything else. They believe that forced evolution isn't really evolution at all. Jake, who had been quiet during most of the meeting, suddenly spoke up. Captain Blake, how many other human crews have been contacted by the architects? Blake smiled. Good question, Lieutenant. We're not the only ones. There are 12 other ships out there, all with crews who've been through the same training. We have. Some are exploration vessels like us. Others are research ships, even a few merchant vessels that wandered into the wrong part of space at the right time. Carter's eyes narrowed. 12 ships with enhanced crews, all returning to human space at the same time. That's not a coincidence. No, it's not, Blake agreed. The architects are preparing humanity for the choice. But they're also preparing us for what comes after, regardless of what we choose. Amy looked up from her communications console. Admiral, I'm detecting multiple ship signatures entering the system. They're not broadcasting Earth fleet codes. Carter moved to the console and studied the readings. These energy signatures, they're similar to the Pathfinders. Blake nodded. The other ships are arriving. The architects wanted all the enhanced crews to return to human space at the same time. It's part of the process. Through the window, Lisa could see new lights appearing in space. Ships that looked like the transformed Pathfinder, each one unique, but all carrying that same impossible beauty. As she watched, 12 vessels arranged themselves in a perfect circle around the growing fleet of Earth ships. Admiral, came a voice over the communication system. This is Captain Joe Palmer of the UES Discovery. We're ready to begin the demonstration. Carter looked at Blake. What demonstration? The one that will convince humanity that this choice is real, Blake replied. The architects don't expect people to make this decision based on words alone. They want to show everyone what enhanced humanity is capable of. Dr. Stevens was practically bouncing in his chair. What kind of demonstration? Doctor. Lee smiled. We're going to build a space station, Doctor. Right here, right now. Using nothing but the enhanced abilities the architects taught us and the raw materials floating in this asteroid field. Carter stared at her. Build a space station? How big? Big enough to house 1 million people, Helen said calmly. And we're going to do it in the next 6 hours. The Admiral sat down hard. That's impossible. Blake stood up and moved toward the door. Admiral, Everything we've told you today would have been impossible yesterday. But today is different. Today, humanity gets to see what we can become. As the enhanced crews prepared for their demonstration, Lisa found herself wondering if humanity was ready for this choice. More importantly, she wondered if they were ready for a future where the impossible became routine, where human consciousness could reshape reality itself. Outside the window, the enhanced ships began to glow brighter, and the asteroids around them started to move in patterns that defied physics. The demonstration was about to begin, and with it, humanity's greatest choice would become real. The alien ships hung in space like dark jewels against the stars. There were 5 of them, each one different from the others. One looked like it was made of living metal that rippled and flowed. Another seemed to be constructed from crystalline structures that caught and bent light in impossible ways. The largest one appeared to be a ship made entirely of energy, shifting between different colors as Lisa watched. Blake had returned to the Pathfinder, despite Admiral Carter's orders. Now his voice came over the communication system, calm but urgent. Admiral, the alien ships are requesting communication. They're using standard galactic protocols. Carter's jaw tightened. There are no standard galactic protocols, Blake. There are now. Helen's voice joined the conversation. The architects taught them to us. Most spacefaring species use similar methods for first contact. Dr. Stevens looked up from his scanner readings. Admiral, the alien vessels aren't showing any weapon signatures. If anything, they seem curious rather than hostile. Lisa watched through the window as the completed space station rotated slowly in space. It was beautiful and functional, a testament to what enhanced humanity could achieve. But now it had become something else, a declaration to the galaxy that humans were ready to join the larger community of intelligent species. Incoming transmission from Earth Command, Amy announced. Admiral Harrison's face appeared on the screen. He was an older man with gray hair and worried eyes. Behind him, Lisa could see the chaos of Earth's command center, with people running back and forth and multiple conversations happening at once. Susan, the situation down here is getting complicated, Harrison said. We've got protests in every major city. Some people want to accept the enhancement immediately. Others are demanding that we reject it completely. The politicians are calling for committees and studies that could take years. Carter rubbed her forehead. What's the official position? There isn't one yet. But I can tell you that the president is leaning toward caution. The idea of changing fundamental human nature is terrifying to a lot of people. Blake's voice cut into the conversation. Admiral Harrison, with respect, we don't have years. They, alien observers, are here for a reason. They want to see what humanity chooses. Dr. Lee's face appeared on a split screen. Admiral, I'm detecting more ships entering the system. Long-range sensors show at least 20 vessels, all of different design signatures. Lisa felt her heart sink. Word was spreading through the galaxy. Humanity's moment of choice was becoming a public event. This is exactly what the architects warned us about, Helen said over the comm. When a species reaches this crossroads, other civilizations take notice. Some will want to help. Others will want to ensure we make the choice they prefer. Admiral Carter stood up and walked to the window. The space around them was becoming crowded with alien ships, each one representing a different species, a different perspective on what humanity should become. Blake, what happens if we can't reach a unanimous decision? She asked. Then the architects withdraw their offer, Blake replied. But that doesn't mean the aliens go away. We'll still have to deal with galactic civilization, just without the enhancement that would let us participate as equals. Jake looked up from his console with alarm. Captain, I'm detecting weapons charging on 3 of the alien vessels. The mood in the room changed instantly. Carter was back at the communications panel in seconds. All fleet ships, raise shields and prepare for combat, she ordered. Wait, Blake's voice was urgent. Admiral, those aren't weapons. They're enhancement fields. Some of the alien species are trying to force the enhancement on humanity. Dr. Stevens was reading his scanners frantically. He's right. The energy patterns are similar to what we detected from the enhanced human ships, but much more powerful. Helen's voice carried a note of fear that Lisa had never heard from any of the enhanced crew. They're trying to make the choice for us. If they succeed, humanity will be enhanced, but not by our own decision. We'll become dependent on them instead of growing into our own potential. Admiral Carter was faced with an impossible situation. Alien ships were trying to force enhancement on humanity, while back on Earth, people couldn't agree on whether to accept it voluntarily. All ships, target the vessels charging enhancement fields, Carter ordered. Admiral, wait, Dr. Lee's voice was urgent. There's another way. On the screen, Lee was working frantically at her console. The enhanced human crews can create a shield field around Earth space. It won't stop the aliens permanently, but it will give humanity time to make its own choice. Blake's voice joined hers, but it will require all 13 enhanced ships working together, and it will mean revealing the full extent of our capabilities to every species watching. Carter looked around the room at her crew. Lisa could see the weight of the decision on the Admiral's face. Choose to let the enhanced crews act, and humanity would be committed to a path that many people feared. But refuse, and alien species might make the choice for them. Do it, Carter said finally. The 13 enhanced ships moved into a new formation, spreading out in a perfect sphere around the Earth fleet and the new space station. As they took position, their hulls began to glow brighter than Lisa had ever seen them. Beginning shield generation, Palmer's voice announced, the space between the ships filled with threads of light, connecting each vessel to the others in a complex web of energy. As the connections strengthened, a barrier began to form, invisible, but clearly effective as the alien ship's enhancement fields bounced harmlessly away. But something else was happening. Lisa could feel it in the air around her, a sense of potential and possibility that made her think of spring mornings and new beginnings. The shield is affecting our crew, Dr. Stevens reported with wonder in his voice. I'm detecting enhanced brain activity in everyone aboard the ship. Blake's voice carried a note of pride. The shield isn't just protecting you from forced enhancement. It's giving every human in the area a taste of what enhancement feels like. Now everyone can make an informed choice. Lisa felt her mind expanding, becoming clearer and more capable. She could suddenly understand the technical readouts that had confused her before. The mathematical principles behind the enhanced ship's technology made perfect sense. But more than that, she could feel the minds of her crew members, not intrusively, but like hearing distant music. This is what we could be, Amy whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Admiral Carter was experiencing the same thing. Her rigid military bearing softened as she felt the connection to everyone around her. It's beautiful, she said quietly. Across human space, the effect was spreading. Every human ship, every space station, every person in the area was experiencing enhanced consciousness. For the first time, the fear and uncertainty that had gripped humanity began to fade as people understood what they were really being offered. The alien ships that had tried to force enhancement began to withdraw, recognizing that humanity would make its own choice. Other vessels moved closer, their crews curious about this species that had managed to surprise the galaxy. Admiral, came a transmission from Earth. This is President Williams. After experiencing the enhancement field firsthand, the Global Council has reached a decision. Carter straightened, though the enhanced awareness remained in her eyes. What's the decision, Madam President? Humanity chooses to evolve, Admiral. But we do it our way, on our terms, with our values intact. Blake's laughter carried across the communications channel. That's the most human response possible. The architects are going to love it. As the shield field stabilized and the enhanced, crews prepared to begin teaching the rest of humanity, Lisa looked out at the stars with new understanding. Humanity had faced its greatest choice and had chosen to grow while remaining true to itself. The galaxy would never be the same. But more importantly, neither would humanity, and that was exactly as it should be.